Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how to use Ansible to install and configure simple web and database servers. My name is Yevgen and this channel is all about showing you how to become a highly paid IT professional and fast. Let's start with understanding what is Ansible. In a few words, it's just a configuration and management tool. It's free and it's open source. It's maintained by Red Hat. Documentation and more information about it can be found on docs.ansible.com. So if we open the web page, we can find more information about it here. Mainly, you can find documentation about Ansible by following this link. In here, you will find some examples, some more information that you would like to configure, and it's a great way to have it on hand if you need any help. Okay. But let's start using the app Ansible itself. First thing first, we will need to have 3 different servers. In this case, I have one host. The host will be used to manage the 2 other servers. It will be host and one web server and one database server. This is our host server. And Ansible has the ability to understand both IP addresses and host names. But in a normal world, it's much easier to use host names. So, first thing first, we will have definition of our web server and database server in our host files, so we can use the host names instead of the IP addresses. For that, we're going to change our host file. In here, as you can see, I've already added 2 lines. This line says that the web server exists on this IP address and database server exists on this IP address. That means if I try to access web server, I will get to this specific machine. Same for database server. Okay, so let's try. I'm going to write a file and exit nano. First, we need to ping our servers and to see if they are responding. So, ping web server. As we can see, the resolution is correct and the server is responding. Let's try with database server. Okay, everything sounds perfect. So now, let's try to connect them through SSH. SSH will be the protocol that's going to be used to connect to the server by Ansible. But using the password while connecting to the server is, well, a bit old, because SSH keys are now very commonly used. So instead of memorizing the password, we'll be using the SSH key. But first, we need to get to the server and add this SSH key. So let's start with trying to access both servers through SSH. So SSH web server. And here, it's asking us if we trust this fingerprint. As we just configured those 2 servers, we can trust them. So I write yes. And now, as you can see, it's asking for the password. I know the password, so I try to log in with it, and everything works perfectly. As you can see, we're now logged with username root on the host web. Let's try to do the same with database server. Once again, we just installed that machine and the fingerprint is the correct one, so we can trust it. Once again, we choose the password. And everything is working. In here we can see once again username at hostname. So okay, we've just confirmed that the servers are accessible by SSH with the password usage. But now we would better use the key files. To do that, we need to generate them. There is a command called SSH Keygen, and in here we just press enter. And here it's asking us where we want to save it. But the default location is perfect for us. We don't need the passphrase because it's a testing environment. So we just press enter twice. And now we've generated the key, both the private part and the public part. Let's confirm our public part. This key can be found in the file called ssh idrasa.pub. So, in here we have it. Okay, now we need to add this line to our servers, so we will be able to access them by using this key. So let's say once again ssh to web server with our password, and in here we change, first thing first, we create ssh directory, and it already exists, so we change ssh authorized keys, and in here we just paste our key. We write the file and exit. So what we just did is added the SSH key public part to the authorized keys file. That means when we will be connecting to the server once again, it will not ask us for our password. It will instead use our SSH key. Let's try it. So I've disconnected from the web. I'm back on our host, and I'm going to try SSH to web server. As you can see, everything worked. So it's not using our password, it's using the SSH key. Perfect. Now let's add the same key to our database server. Here it's still asking for the password. But now we create SSH folder and edit authorized keys. Once again, we paste our key, write the file, and exit nano. So in here we also just added our key. Now let's try to see if it works. So what I just did, I disconnected from the server and reconnected to it again. And now I wasn't asked for the password. So this part is done and it's perfect. Now everything seems perfect and we can start using Ansible. To install it, we need to use pip. So pip is a Python package manager, and it contains the latest version of Ansible. To install it, we follow two commands: apt-get install python 3/pip, and we confirm that we want to install it. There are different ways of installing Ansible. We can use our specific package manager of our system, or we can use the Python way. Considering Ansible is written in Python, using pip might be the best idea. Now pip is installed, and to install Ansible itself, we just write pip3 install Ansible. And now we wait for a few moments while it installs it. Okay, looks like everything was installed. And we can try to confirm that. To do that, we'll write Ansible --version. And from what you can see, it's installed and the version is 2.9.9. That's great to know. Okay, so we have Ansible working, we have SSH keys working. Let's get into the things of actually managing our servers with Ansible. To do that, we'll have to create a small folder. We'll be having all our configuration done. So let's start with mkdir test Ansible, and let's go there. There is nothing here for now, and the first thing we need to do is to create a configuration file. It will be very simple. We'll just change the default configuration, the default variable inventory, to use file name hosts for our inventory. Inventory is the way Ansible treats hosts, so every host should be in that inventory for Ansible to understand what will he be managing. So we create this file, we write it, and we also create the hosts file. And here we'll have the web server and database server. So now Ansible will understand that he can manage those two hosts. Okay, now we have this ready. Let's try to ping our hosts using Ansible. So the command is pretty simple. It's just Ansible -m ping all. And now we can see the answer. What we did now, we just pinged the servers and by using Ansible, and we confirmed that they respond to pings. So what this says to us is Ansible is working and it can connect to both the servers. If we had done something wrong, for example, didn't know the specific server name or the keys didn't work, it will give an error. So let's try this and see what it does show us. Random server. So I added just another one server into hosts, and now I'm going to try to ping it. As you may imagine, one of them will not be reachable. So the error here is saying it's unreachable. So let's remove it and continue with our two servers. There is also another way. Once again, just let's confirm that everything is working correctly. Okay, perfect. Another way we can use Ansible is just throwing commands into it. So for example, Ansible -m shell. This is saying that it will be using module shell with the following application command. In this case, hostname. And we'll be saying that we want to check the hostname of all the hosts. So when we write this command and execute it, we'll see the database server that we called our machine database server has the hostname of DB. Web server has the hostname of web. We can also try this specifically with stuff that we want. For example, we want to just see the hostname of DB server. So it will just execute on this specific server. Same goes for the web server. All is just shows the information for everything that we have in our inventory. Once again, it works. Okay, now let's make a minimal configuration on our servers. Most of the servers will need to use Vim in our case, so let's install it. First thing we do is create the roles folder, then we create minimal folder and then tasks. With mkdir -p, we will have all those three folders created. So roles /minimal/tasks. Let's confirm that. Roles, minimal, tasks. There's nothing here for now, but let's go there and create a file called main YAML. In here, we'll have the following syntax. So every line starts with a minus in this specific file, in this task file. And we have to make something like name, 2 points, and name of the thing we are creating. In this case, we want to install Vim, so we write install Vim. But this can be anything that would make sense to you. So we will be using one module called apt. And apt has the possibility of installing other packages. And what we want to do is to write package and specific package name. So after this command, it will install package Vim. But one thing is important. Ansible is management tool also, so it has to understand what has to be done. And so we need to specify the state. In this case, the state will be present. That means that we will be asking our Ansible server to connect to both servers and install Vim by confirming it's present. So using this module, we can install it or confirm if it's present. Okay, so this file is here and we can write it. Now, let's create the Playbook file. The Playbook file defines what will be installed with what roles. So let's go to our folder, test Ansible, and create a file called Playbook.yaml. This file starts with 3 slashes, 3 minus some symbols. And in here we define the hosts we'll be working with. In this case, it's minimal configuration that we want to run on all the servers. So we provide hosts, 2 points, all. Once again, as using the alt command, this will install something on all the servers that we control, all the servers that are part of our inventory. And now we define the roles. In this case, I'd like to have minimal role. This role is the one that has the file created in tasks main.yaml. So this main.yaml will be used to define all our servers, because we provide here hosts, 2 points, all, and roles will be minimal. We can also specify IP addresses, host names in here, and define them specifically, but once again, I want to have everything with Vim installed. Same thing with roles. We can have multiple roles on specific servers. Okay, so now we have this ready. Now let's do the installation itself. For that, we will need to use Ansible Playbook and specify the Playbook file. After I press enter, the installation will be starting. So here, it will be using the play for all the servers. First, it has basically 2 tasks. First task is understand all the facts about the server. What's the current status of it, what's happening to it, if it can install, if it's working, and if everything is correct and good to go. The second task is installation of Vim. Remember, it's the name that we provided in the file main.yaml. And then we have the recap. So, information about the status. In here we see that we had 2 tasks. So we had OK for both of those tasks on both servers. That means DB server used the task gathering facts and also passed the tasks install Vim. Same thing for database server. And there was one change. So as we installed something, there was a change on the server. That means now Vim is installed on those servers. Now let's see what happens if by having Vim installed and we try to install it once again by using the same command. As you can see, nothing changed. In the sense of changed is equals to 0. This means that both tasks run successfully and confirmed that they don't need any change. Nothing needs to be changed in this at this time. And that's great. Okay, now let's install a few more packages. For that, we need to change our roles, minimal, tasks, main YAML file. Let's, for example, install Git. As you can see, we can have a comma here and the second package name that we would like to add. And let's see how this works. So we just configured the main.yaml and we didn't change our playbook. That means that on all hosts, the minimal role will still be installed when we start the playbook. Let's try it. Once again, it starts by gathering facts and information about the server. And the second one, it installs Vim. And also, in this case, installs Git. As we didn't change the name of it is the same. But as you can see, there is change on the servers. So we had 2 tasks. both of them were okay, and we had one change. Let's fix our description. As we all install Vim and Git, let's have this information correctly presented to the user that will be using our playbook. So we write the file and we exit. And once again, let's try using the same command again to see if something happens. Once again, there will be 2 OKs and nothing changed, because we will not be installing any other packages. But let's confirm that. Okay, perfect. In this case, you can see that the name was changed. And both servers now have Git and Vim. Okay, now let's specify something more interesting. Let's create a web server in our Ansible installation. So to do that, we'll have to create another folder. Roles web server. Tasks. Once again, we want to create 3 folders. So in folder roles, I'll be creating a folder web server and a folder tasks. And now I'm going to have a minimal configuration. By minimal configuration, I mean I'll be using a simple web server, and I'll also be installing PHP and PHP MySQL module. Okay, to do that, we need to add name, and in this case, we want to install Apache 2, PHP, PHP/-MySQL. And the command will be used here is apt once again. The package we want to install is Apache 2, PHP, MySQL. And once again, we want to have a state that shows us that these 3 services are present on the server. So the state is present. Another thing that I would like to do is to upload a specific file to the server so we can test it further. For that, I'm gonna have the following information. So, copying index.php file. And there is another thing. So instead of using apt, we'll be using command copy. It's actually a module. So you can think about it as command or a module. So from where we'll be copying it. In this case, it's .index.php. And destination will be var www html index.php. Owner root group root and mode 0644. Okay, so in here I'll be copying a file called index.php from the app folder to destination var www html index.php on the server. That means from our management host we'll be connecting to the server and copying this file to there. We will define our owner as root and group as root, and the mode will be 644. So we write this to file, and now let's create the actual file, index.php. In this case, it will be a simple PHP script. It's very basic. It will just do a select K and V from data, and it will show it. It will use MySQL database. So what we do now, we need to once again use our playbook. So it will be Ansible Playbook, playbook.yaml. But one thing that I forgot was the actual specification of a web server. What that means is we have the role of web server made, but there are no specific web servers part of that role. So no servers have that role. Let's fix that. So hosts, and here we'll be having web server. So as you can see, it's not all, it's a specific host, and this host is the web server. And the roles that it will have will be the web server. Notice one thing, the host is this one, so web_server, and the role is web server. This web server role is the one that we created just now. Let's write to file and exit. So once again, web server is here. It's the one role is this one. Okay, now let's actually execute it. As we can see, it's doing multiple things. First, it still does a play for all. So it's seen the first information that we need to have Vim and Git installed on all the hosts. Then it sees information about web server. So same thing here. It has two tasks. It has currently 3 tasks. It's gathering information about the server, installing Apache 2, PHP, and PHP MySQL. And also the third one is copying the index.php file. So what happened here is our database server had 2 tasks to be run: gathering facts for the play all and installing Vim and Git. As there were no changes, it just had 2 OKs saying that everything is perfect and everything is running as it needs to be, and nothing needs to be changed. Our web server, on the other hand, has 5 tasks. So as it's part of all play, it will first gather information and gather facts about the server, then it will install Vim and Git if required, then it will go to the web server part. It will get the facts about the server, then it will install Apache 2, PHP, and PHP MySQL, and then it will copy the index.php file. That means there will need to be 2 changes. First is the installation of Apache 2 and PHP MySQL, and the second one is copying of the file. So we had 5 jobs to be done, and we had 2 changes related to those jobs. Now let's see if the server is working. We might use curl. Normally curl is not installed on Ubuntu, but let's see if it works now. Web server. Curl is a simple web client that you can use in the console. Okay, so in this case it was already installed. Let's scroll a bit up to see the information about our web server. And it says Apache 2 Ubuntu default page, and it works, and this is great. Okay, so this is working. Now let's see if the index.php is present. Strange. Let's see if it works this way. Web server. Okay. The browser normally doesn't work this way, so sometimes it doesn't like the host name that is very simple. Let's go directly to our server by IP address 192.168.1.137. Okay, we see the same page as we've seen before. Now let's access index.php. Actually, the problem was not the curl, it was the server. So PHP got to be executed, but then the error get address information failed. What does this mean? So let's first check the file index.php. And here we have the connection. What it does is tries to connect by using MySQL to a specific server. But does the server know the server name? Let's confirm that. Let's do SSH to our web server and try to ping our database server. And as you may understand, there will be an error. This server is not known by web server. So let's fix that. by changing etc. hosts. And here we add the information about database server 192.168.1.138 database server. And now let's ping this host again. Okay, so now we have this information. Now we get back to our management server and try to use curl once again. Okay, this time the error is different. It says the connection is refused, and that makes sense. In this case, the web server is trying to connect to database server, and the database server is still not a database server, so we don't have anything installed on database server. Let's fix that. Let's create a role that will be used for our database. To do that, we'll be creating another file. In the folder, first, we create the folder roles, database server, and handlers. And also we create the tasks. And now let's create the main task. We'll get to the handlers in a few seconds. Let's create the main task for this database server. Task main YAML. Okay, so let's start with simple things. The first thing we need is the installation of database server. So let's install it. The name of it will be installing database server. And once again, we'll be using apt. The packages that we will need to use is MariaDB Server, and just for the debugging purposes, let's install MariaDB Client. So the client is not required for the server to work, but just if we get into some specific errors that we would like to fix and to test on the same machine, we can use this. Another thing we need to use is Python 3 PyMySQL module. That's because we'll be using some modules that are present in Ansible but require this specific module. Let's get back to that in a few seconds. So Python 3 PyMySQL. So Ansible will also use this thing to work with database. And the state, in this case, once again, needs to be present. So the server has to have this installed. Okay, now let's create a few interesting jobs. For example, adding a cron job for database backups. Database backup cron job. It's just a sample cron job that we can create with this one. There are different modules. In this case, cron is another one of them. And here we have a few parameters. Hour defines at what hour we want to run the specific cron job. Let's say 18 hours. Minute, 0 minutes. And user who will be running it is root. And the job we'll be running is, notice this thing. So notice the quotes. In this case, we have spaces in our command. That's why we'll need to use this one. We need to start with quotes and end with quotes. So don't forget, let's open and close them. And now let's write the command itself. So user bin MySQL dump all databases. And let's write to the file root backup.sql. And let's give it a name for the cron. So this name is for the Ansible. This name will be for the cron itself. Okay, so we used another module to create database backup cron job. That's great. Okay, now let's get some data into the database. For that, we create another thing. It's called copy database. So in here, we'll be using the common module, the copy module. Once again, copy module can copy files from your management host into your specific host. So the manager, from manager to the specific host you'd like. In this case, it will be database server. And source will be backup.sql, and destination will be root backup.sql. And let's notice one thing. This will be a file that will be added to the database. So let's not forget the permissions about it. So owner is root and group is root. And let's not allow anyone else to read it or write it. So mod will be 0600. Okay, so now we have three parts of our task. For our task, it's install database server, adding backup cron job, and copying database information from our file to the server. But okay, we have this file there, but well, we need some way to execute it. To do that, we need to create another task that we will name adding database. In here, we'll be using the module itself, the MySQL module itself. So MySQL_db. And this one is used to manage the database. Let's create a database called Ansible test. And we will need to define what will it be using with this. And we want to have information from our file that it will be present on the server, backup.sql, imported to the database itself. So we provide the state equals import. We define the target from where we want to copy this information. In this case, we just can copy and paste the file path. Okay, this looks great, but sometimes the servers will try to connect to itself using wrong information. So it might connect not using the socket, it might try to connect using IP address, and we would like to have this working. So in Ubuntu, we need to add the following part. Login Unix socket equals to the socket that this will be using. So instead of using MySQL directly connect to the server on specific IP address and port, it will use a socket. Okay. Now we have the information imported to the database, but we are missing a few important steps. One of them is creation of a specific user. So create user Ansible test with password Ansible test and give it all the permissions. To do that, we'll need another module. This module is called MySQL_user. In here, we define the name, in this case, Ansible_test. We define the password, Ansible test. Obviously, having configuration files with the password in clear text is not always good. But as this is a test environment, we can have this directly like this. One thing now we need not to forget is the host. So as we will be using remote machine to connect to this one, we need to specify the host that MySQL will look into. So we provide the host as this symbol. And we add the privileges of all. So we want to all databases, we want to all tables, and we give all permissions for that. Once again, we want to be sure that it's working. So we add this part and specify the Unix socket. Okay, so this looks great. But let's remember one thing. MySQL and MariaDB doesn't like to expose your service to outside world. That's mainly because of the security ideas. Because if you expose something to outside world without having a password defined for a user, it's bad. But in our case, we know what we are doing and we are creating a specific user and specific password. And so we need to have information passed to MySQL to understand that we would like to have remote access enabled to this database. So create another task. Let's call it allow remote access. So To do that, we'll copy a specific file. Let's call it my.cnf, and we'll copy it to etc. MySQL MariaDB conf d 60 server cnf. So this will copy our my.cnf file to this folder on the server, and it will use it. Let's not forget two important parts: is owner root, group root, and the mode of permissions, so 0644. Oops. Notice that group and user, in this case all other users, will not have the permission to write to this configuration. If they do, something bad might happen. And okay, now we'll do notify thing. So what's notify? Notify is actually the handler that we created. So before creating these tasks, we also would like to create the handler, notification handler. Okay, let's just write it and I'll show you example directly. So notify restart my SQL server. What this will do is when this command is run, it will do a notification to a specific handler. In this case, the handler is named restart my SQL, but this handler is not defined, so we need to define it. First thing first, we confirm that everything is correct. So name is this one, we install the server and everything that we need. We create the cron job with specific target times, then it does the backup. We copy database information, we add a database, we create a user, and we allow remote access. So now let's not forget to create two files, backup.sql and my.cnf. Okay, let's first see what the handler is. So nano roles DB server handlers, and in here we define another file. So as you remember, we need to have a notification that will restart our MySQL server. The format of this file is really simple. It has a name and it has something to do with service. So this service module allows us to manage our services. So for example, if you want to restart, start, or stop the service of something, we can do this here. In this case, we provide the name MySQL and state restarted. So what it does, it will restart MySQL service. So we write this file, and when there is a notification by this task being done, it will restart MySQL. So everything will be working. Okay, we can't forget to change two files. First one is my.cnf. In here we'll have the information that the MySQL server can actually listen on all the interfaces. For that, we write mysqld and we provide information about bind address, that it can listen on all the interfaces. And we write a file, and now we need to remember the backup SQL that will be imported to the database. I have it ready here. So let's copy and paste it. What it does is create a table called data with 3 columns: ID, that will be auto-incremented, and our primary key with varchar type, and value with varchar type. And the data that we will insert will be K1 and V1, K2 and V3 and V2, and K3 and V3. So it's perfect. This information will be added to our database. And now let's write this file and see how it goes. So we need to be in the specific folder where we have the Playbook YAML. Once again, if you run the Playbook, it will just do two things that we provided. So it will work with our web server and our minimal play. So we need to add to Playbook information on how to work with database server. So hosts will be DB server, and we'll have roles as database server. So DB server. Once again, this name is the one that is present in here. So it's the role that we defined. Okay, now let's see if it works. As you can see, we are still doing the first thing, initial task for all machines, installing vim and git. It's done, and we're doing web server stuff, and they are also done. And now we started to install a few applications. So database server. And here, as you can remember, it will install multiple things. Okay, so it's done. Copy of database, adding database, and creating a user is also present here. Allowing remote access is also done, and database server restart MySQL is done. So once again, we had 7 new things that changed on our server, but in this case only on database server. Okay, so let's see if this works. As you remember, we have a website, a simple website on our 137 host. So let's see. And as you can see, everything is working. So what this confirms is our web server can connect to our database server. And that's great. Okay, so let's just review what we just did. First thing we need to have is our playbook. Playbook defines the hosts with the specific roles. Another thing we need to have is Ansible configuration that defines the variable inventory where it saves the hosts. The hosts file has the information about the web server and database server. Now we need to see the tasks we have. So let's start with the all tasks. Alias roles, minimal roles. We have this file here, so that installs vim and git. Obviously, if you don't need vim or git on your server, you wouldn't need to have this task here. But as we are just testing, it will be interesting and good for you to try it out with something as simple as vim and git that doesn't need any dependencies, that doesn't need to copy files, and well, it's as clear and as simple as that. Okay, let's also see other roles. So we had database server, and here we had handlers and tasks. Tasks, we have all the information about the tasks we wanted to do. So installing database server, adding database server information, everything that we want. In the handlers, we had another thing that will handle our restart of MySQL. So if you need any other service to restart our MySQL, we'll have this here. We have our handler work with that. Okay, now let's see roles and the web server. In here we just had 2 tasks: installation of PHP, Apache and PHP MySQL, and copy of our index.php file to the server. Okay, and this concludes the tutorial. I hope you learned a few things now, and if you have any questions, comment them and leave them in the comments below. You can also find other videos on this channel. Thank you. Goodbye.